Hi, Mike.
Hi.
Thanks for meeting with me today. So before we get started, I just want to kind of tell you a little bit about this process. This is our first time meeting, and so I just have a few questions to ask you. We call them kind of our intake questions. It's just to make sure that I have an understanding about kind of your history, your family's history, things like that, so I can make notes about what might be beneficial to utilize in sessions in the future if we decide to go that route. But before I get into that, um, can you just tell me maybe a little bit about why you're here today?
Yeah, so I've been really struggling to feel okay lately, and my wife was really adamant that I come and try to talk to somebody about it. A couple weeks ago, I went to the doctors for a checkup, and they had told me that I have a chronic liver condition where my liver does not function the way that it should. So I was advised to seek medical attention from a specialist, and it's been very stressful and upsetting, and I really do not want to go and get another opinion from anyone because I'm afraid of what they're going to tell me, and I don't want to change my ways.
So what I'm hearing you saying is that you're a little nervous to seek out additional medical attention for this condition that you've been diagnosed with. Can you tell me what has caused the liver condition?
Um so I come home every night and I have a drink, and I think over time, just from drinking every night out of habit, my liver is just now not functioning the way that it should. Um, I like my alcohol. I really don't want to have to stop drinking. Um, so I think that's probably a part of the reason why I don't want to look into it any further because I don't want to have to give that up.
And are the doctors that you're seeing now, are they advising you to limit the amount of alcohol you intake?
Yes, they're telling me that if I don't stop drinking, it's just going to get worse, and then it's just going to lead into eventually my death. Essentially is what they said, because I'm not going to, I mean, of course there's going to be other it's going to be a process to get to that point, but basically what they told me is if I don't change my habits, it's just going to be downhill for me.
So I'm hearing that, correct me if I'm wrong if I've misheard something, but um, the doctors that you've seen so far for your condition are expressing a pretty serious problem, and they're asking you to limit the alcohol, but that's not something um, that feels like you can manage right now. That's not something that you feel like you can stop doing.
Correct. Yeah, I just don't want to stop. I don't want to stop drinking because that's how I deal with just my everyday life. I'm a construction worker. I work a rough job, and I look forward to coming home and just sitting on the couch and having a drink because it makes me feel good, especially after, I'm 55 years old. So my body isn't the way that it used to be. So, that's just my way of coping with the, I guess, the nature of the job.
Okay. Um, I think this might be a good opportunity for me to start asking a few of the questions I just need to document for the intake because you've touched on actually a few of the things that I need. So you just mentioned that you're 55. And can you tell me just your ethnicity and how you identify?
Yeah, so I am male and I'm white. And as I mentioned before, I'm 55.
55. And you mentioned that you have a wife.
Mhm.
She's the one who encouraged you to come talk to me today. And then how long have you been together? How long have you been with your wife?
We've been married for 15 years. Um, it's been a rough ride. So, we've been just on and off. But I mean, we were always married. It's been a rough 15 years.
Is it just the two of you, or do you have children together?
So we have 5 children. We have 2 sons, or I'm sorry, 3 sons and 2 daughters. Um, so it's a very chaotic household. All of us in one house, and I think just the dynamics in the household don't make it easier for me. After I come home from work, I'm exhausted and I don't even want to deal with the people at the house. I just want to be in my own little bubble and drink my drinks and watch my TV.
And you mentioned earlier that you said you have about a drink daily.
Mhm.
Would you say that is accurate, or would you say that it might be a little bit more than one per day?
Um, it's probably a little bit more. Um, yeah, I would say probably like 3 drinks at the most. Or, well, I'm sorry, at the least. Yeah.
Thank you. And you've got a very full house. So 3 sons, 2 daughters. Can you tell me how old are they?
So they are 6, 8, 12, 14, and then 19.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's
so
a
a
big range.
lot of teenagers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I can understand that you do have a pretty full house, and I imagine there's a lot going on
Mhm.
often. And
Mhm.
does your wife work? Does she also have a job, or does she stay at home?
She works. She does it's like a secretary job at the jail. So she just mans the front desk and she works full time as well. I work full time. Um, I think, I think between me and my wife, we're just really stressed out all the time. And when you add on the stress of the kids, it gets harder to just cope with everything in the house.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, can I ask you about when do you think you started drinking a few a few per day?
Well, so both of my parents are actually alcoholics. So I actually started drinking at a very young age because I was introduced to it at a very young age. So probably 16, I started drinking, but I think it became more of a problem um, once I reached 21 and then my later 20s. I was, young, I was a partier, I would drink with my friends a lot, and I think I just kind of resorted to using it as a coping skill as I drank it because I found that it relaxed me. And then as I started working in the construction business, as I got older, I think my drinking escalated more because of just the different, I mean, I work in a very labor intensive job. So, my back's always hurting, my joints always hurt, and it's just easier for me to cope with it and use alcohol to distract myself from the different pains of my body.
It sounds like you found a lot of comfort
Mhm.
in that after drink beverage
Mhm.
or few beverages that you get to have.
Mhm.
Um, would you consider yourself a religious person? Would you consider yourself spiritual?
No, my family was never really involved in any sort of religion. We were very, very, I guess, isolated family background, I guess you could say. Like we weren't very involved in the community. We weren't really ever involved in a church. So no, I don't have any specific spiritual or religious things that I would want to be acknowledged.
When you say that you were isolated as a family, did you have friends growing up? Did you have siblings? Was it just a small family?
So I have 2 older sisters. They're only a few years older than me. But I was never really close to them. I think just because I was the only boy, like they were sisters, they were just into different things that I wasn't really into, and that made it harder for us to have like an actual relationship. Um, so that was very isolating. And then friends, like I had friends, but I don't know if I would consider them to be good friends. Like they were more just friends that were like, oh, like let's go out drinking and go to the bar. Like it wasn't friends to where you could talk to them and go to them if you ever needed support.
And what would you, how would you discuss your friends now? Do you have any friendships now that you feel would be a little bit more, a little deeper than your friendships growing up?
I think after I got married and had a family, I that isolated me more as far as friends go, just because it got so busy with the kids and, just maintaining a marriage and coming home and having all these different responsibilities. I never really maintained friendships. It just wasn't my priority. So, I have like a few coworkers here and there, like that I see at work that maybe I'll shoot the shit with, but nothing to where I could, find support in.
Okay, sorry. I'm taking some notes just to make sure that I have this documented appropriately. Um, oh, and you mentioned earlier you have two sisters, and also that your parents were both alcoholics. Do your sisters, do they have alcohol dependency at all or substance abuse problems?
They do not know. I think it was just my parents that had that pattern. My sisters, they once they got old enough, they left. Like they kind of separated themselves from the family dynamic. Um, and I think that's probably why. And I didn't leave. I actually stayed with my parents, and I think that's how I got dragged into that whole, I guess, way of learning how to deal with things. I didn't follow in my sister's footsteps like I probably should have.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Um, when your parents used alcohol when you were growing up, what would you say, how would you say their behavior changed when they were using alcohol? Did you feel unsafe in your home at any point?
Um, my mom, she was more of like this like happy alcoholic, like she would just be like super fun and giggly and, like playful. But my dad, on the other hand, he was a very like angry drunk. So I think, when they were drinking, like when they were both home and drinking, right? Like it would be tough because like my mom would be like all giggly, but then my dad would be like angry at her for being so giggly. So then it would be a very abusive kind of domestic violence situation that I would witness quite a bit as a child. Um, yeah, so I think, I mean, like, even when I drink, sometimes I think like I'm a lot like my dad. And I feel guilty too, because, my kids, I'm worried that my kids are gonna pick up these habits that I'm using now, which is a part of the reason why I was so motivated and my wife wanted me to come and talk about it. Because, we both agreed that, this is something that we don't want our children to learn and carry into our, their lives.
Yes, what I'm hearing you say is you're concerned about your family and you're concerned maybe a little bit about your own behavior when you are using alcohol. But the thought of stopping alcohol use is still difficult for you, and that's still something that you don't feel would be a real possibility at this point.
Yeah, it's more that I'm worried that I'm anxious that I'm not gonna find something that works better than the alcohol as far as like helping me deal with different things. Like I want to stop, but I don't feel like I can stop.
Hear you. Thank you for sharing that. So you do want to commit to change. You just don't know exactly how to do that.
Correct, yeah.
Um, okay. Thank you. I think
Mhm.
I have almost all the information I would need from an intake. Is there just anything else that you wanted to add? Is there anything that I maybe missed that you wanted to mention for me today?
Um, no, I think that pretty much sums up what I've been going through. Thank you.
So I would love to continue our conversations if you are okay with that. We can maybe schedule another session and I can help you to begin to maybe come up with some strategies to cope in maybe some different ways.
Yeah, I would love that. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much.